Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a really powerful initiative called ImPACT IT. It was designed to tackle systemic inequality in the academic world of information systems. And honestly, it's a fascinating look at how a dedicated team can create a real blueprint for change. Okay, so let's start with the big idea behind this whole project. It's all built on this core belief. Achieving gender equity isn't just about being fair, which of course it is, but it's also about making the entire field stronger, more innovative, and way more impactful for everyone. It's a classic win-win. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to really understand the problem they were facing. Then we'll meet the team that tackled it head on. After that, we'll break down their strategy, look at the specific actions they took, and finally see what the future holds for all this incredible work. Right, so every great plan has to start by really nailing down the problem. What exactly was the challenge that the ImPACT IT grant was created to solve?
The central issue was this pretty obvious gap at the very top. In the information systems field, there's a major underrepresentation of women in the senior ranks, especially at the full professor level. And this isn't just a number on a chart. It's a barrier that really affects mentorship, leadership, and honestly, the direction of the entire academic community.
Now, what's really fascinating is that early on, the research showed this was not a simple fix. The problem was this complex, tangled web of systemic issues. I mean, you're talking about everything from confusing and inconsistent promotion paths to cultural biases, a serious lack of access to critical support networks, and this really profound sense of isolation for a lot of women in the field. Okay, so when you have a problem this complex, you need an absolute powerhouse team with diverse skills and a shared vision. So let's meet the people who actually made ImPACT IT happen. The whole initiative was spearheaded by this core team of 6. Led by principal investigator Eleanor Loyacono, they were the ones who provided the leadership that turned the grant's big goals into real-world action. And they weren't going it alone. They had this wide-ranging advisory board that brought in deep experience from all across the field, which was crucial for making sure the project was guided by a ton of diverse expert perspectives. Okay, let's get into their plan. With the problem defined and the team in place, they developed a super clear, high-level strategy that focused on 3 core objectives. You know, their strategy was one of those things that's brilliantly simple on the surface, but so powerful. First, change the system from within the main professional organization, the Association for Information Systems, or AIS. Second, create clear, supportive, informal pathways to promotion. And third, directly identify and address those hidden biases that were holding people back. A great strategy is one thing, right? But execution is everything. So how did the team actually put this plan into motion? Well, they rolled out a whole series of concrete initiatives to really bring their vision to life. In total, they launched 7 distinct initiatives. And the scope here was so comprehensive. They were tackling the problem from all these different angles, creating new leadership roles, building data dashboards to track progress, developing transparency tools for committees, even producing a documentary to share stories, and running workshops to build community. Let's just dive into a few key examples to see how the strategy played out. First up, they went right for the heart of systemic change. They created a brand new, powerful leadership role right inside the main organization. So, here's the crucial part. The new Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion isn't just a fancy title. It's a full voting member on the governing council. This gives DEI a permanent and powerful voice right where the big decisions are being made. And on top of that, it's an elected position, which means that person is directly accountable to the members. That's huge. Next, to tackle that hidden bias problem, they developed a really practical tool to help the organization see and correct its own processes. This self-assessment tool gives committees a concrete way to review their own procedures for things like awards and picking leaders. But they didn't just create it and walk away. They strongly recommended making it a standard, ongoing practice for everyone, and pairing it with training to help committee members recognize and mitigate their own biases. It's a real 1-2 punch. They also created a program to directly fight back against that feeling of isolation we talked about earlier, specifically for women faculty who are mid-career. The Springboard Your Career workshop is just a brilliant model for how to scale your impact. It's a global series, but it's also customizable. It provides these modular materials that local leaders, they call them catalysts, can adapt to build supportive communities and create those professional networks that are so vital for advancing your career. So, after all this work, the big question is, did it actually make a difference? An external evaluation was brought in to measure the project's impact, and wow, the results were pretty telling. The results really speak for themselves. The third-party evaluation from Dr. Marco Chang was overwhelmingly positive. She concluded that yes, the project met its main goals and, maybe even more importantly, it built a strong and lasting foundation for future DEI work within the entire information systems community. But, and this is a really big but, the work isn't over. The evaluator made it crystal clear that the end of the grant is not the end of the effort. Think of it like a handoff. The responsibility now shifts to the organization's leadership and its members to keep this momentum going and build on it. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the next big challenge, making this stuff permanent. For these initiatives to have a lasting impact, they can't just be special projects. They need a permanent home in the organization. So these questions, like who owns the data dashboard, who manages the self-assessment tool, and who delivers the bias training, are now the critical next steps. Ultimately, the ImPACT IT project is just a powerful model, and it leaves us with this final, really thought-provoking question that goes way beyond just one academic field. They've given everyone a blueprint. So the question for all of us is, what would it take to replicate this success and drive this kind of meaningful change somewhere else?